Today I'm going to show you how to set up this aquarium in step-by-step format, all the way from how to set up the wood hardscape, to installing the cosmetic sand path, to preparing the tissue culture plants for planting, and then planting the scape itself. So make sure you stay to the very end of the video because I've got a very special question for you. Hey there, welcome back to Logan Rando Aquascaping. My name is Logan and today I've got another full aquascaping tutorial for you. So I just moved down to San Diego, California from Portland, Oregon, and this is the first scape I've set up in my new apartment. This is a UNS 45U, and I've specifically set it up for the boost plant set. So you might notice that my personal set behind me is looking a little bit barren, and that's because, like I said, I'm just still getting settled into my place. But before you know it, there'll be lots of art on the walls and lots of scapes and terrariums. So this place should be looking lively soon. So without further ado, let's get started with today's tutorial for this UNS 45U Dragonwood Aquascape. So as with every great aquascape, the foundation starts with a great hardscape. So the first thing I did was lay down a thin layer of UNS Controsoil. UNS Controsoil is a complete aqua soil that are gonna give your plants everything they need. So you pair this with some good liquid water column nutrients and your plants should really thrive. Now before doing the actual hardscape that would remain in the tank, I did sort of a little mock-up, and this is something that I've been doing more and more that seems to produce really good results for me. So I'm not a big hardscape dojo guy, mostly because I have this fear of creating something that I love in a dojo and then transitioning it over to an aquascape and not being able to recreate it. So what I do instead is I lay down the key elements just to see how they're gonna occupy the canvas. And that's what I did here. I laid down my key pieces of wood and came up with this mock-up to get a very rough, imperfect idea of how I would lay down the key elements. So the next step was to actually lay down the hardscape. Now, over the years, one of the greatest things I've learned about the hardscaping process is it's a good idea to lay down aqua soil, add in some key elements of hardscape, so that'll be your wood or your rock, and then layer in more aqua soil. This helps stabilize the hardscape and it makes things look more lived in and natural rather than just man-made and contrived. I'm working with the beautiful dragonwood. I got this from Boost Plant. They sent it to me a little over a year ago, and it's left over from a scape that was in my Portland place. So the goal was to create something really impactful with this that is a convex layout. So this is the first time I'm doing a layout of this sort, and the dragonwood is just super impactful. So after the basic hardscape process was complete, I lived with it for a week, and every day, every afternoon, maybe every night, I would kind of go in, shift things a little bit here and there, play with the idea of adding different elements in the back, really try and create a sense of depth and intrigue. So it's a good idea to be patient and do this well ahead of when you're gonna plant and flood the tank. So the next step, once the hardscape was finalized, was to glue everything into place and to install the cosmetic sand path. So for this, I am super fortunate to be using the brand new UNS Controsand. So just like Controsoil, Ultum Nature Systems now makes cosmetic sand and cosmetic gravel, and Boost Plant was kind enough to send me an extra bag of the Controsand Bora that they had lying around. So this is a really great cosmetic sand because it's not homogeneous. Sometimes you go to like a generic pet store and they have cosmetic sands that are uniform in color and way too bright. This sand has a lot of character. It has different colors in it. So I'm very grateful to be using this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what it looks like when the tank is planted and flooded. So for this cosmetic sand path, I want to take the eye on a little bit of a journey and have it sort of wind up and down to a vanishing point. I decided to just lay down a thin little layer and get the general structure and then kind of work it out from there. And by the time I was done, I was quite happy with what I had, and it provided a totally different element to the hardscape that I had really been missing. So the next step was to get ready for my favorite part, the planting of the aquarium. I'm gonna be planting a full carpet of UNS dwarf hairgrass. So in order to make your planting process as enjoyable as possible, I recommend you do all of your plant prep ahead of the planting itself. So set yourself up a nice little station with all of your plants, a bowl of lukewarm water, grab a trash can or a recycling bin to toss the containers, and put on some music or a podcast. So I've got 10 cups of the UNS dwarf hairgrass. And with UNS tissue culture, the plants come in this gel medium that provide the plants everything they need to thrive. So I'm happy to say that these plants are in beautiful condition. So in order to get that gel medium off, and you really want to make sure you get all of it off, I recommend you just pull the plant out of the cup and then dip it in into that lukewarm water and kind of massage off the gel. And I would say 95% of the time with tissue culture plants, the individual plantlets that you'll be planting will sort of form naturally. So with this hair grass, it was easy to just pluck the plantlets off and then place them on my little slate board here for planting. Now, if it takes you a long time to prep your plants, depending on how many you have, you're gonna wanna keep a little water sprayer nearby to keep them moist and happy. So once all of my plants were prepped, it was time to move them on over to the tank itself and get ready for planting. And when you're planting a monoculture like this, there doesn't necessarily have to be a rhyme or reason to your planting because the tank is ultimately gonna be filled up with a single species of plants. So I sort of just planted corner by corner so that I had a good visual idea of how much space is covered by plant versus how much plant mass I have left. Because no matter how much plant mass you have to start with, you're gonna wanna spread things out really evenly so there aren't like large patches of barren soil. And as I say in most of my videos, plant as densely as your budget will allow on day one. This is really gonna help you get that foothold against algae, and it's gonna make your tank look very visually impactful. I would not try and skimp out on your planting budget. If you do have a really tight budget for planting, consider, living with the hardscape for a little bit and waiting an extra few weeks so that you can plant in the mass that's gonna really set you up for success. So after all of the dwarf hair grass was in place, it was time to do the usual, take a step back, evaluate it, see how things were looking, and I'm happy to say that I am really digging this tank. So I'm gonna be setting this up as a dry start for about 1 to 2 weeks because I just moved here and I've got to get my water change system set up. Contrary to what I had in Portland where the water was super soft, came out of the tap at 30 TDS, it is the opposite here. It is rock hard, probably about 365 parts per million TDS. So I'm gonna be experimenting with the tap water to see what kind of results I get. If I have to ultimately go RO, I will, but I'd rather avoid it if I have to. So if you live in SoCal, let me know how your plants and your fauna do with the tap water, but I'm looking forward to giving it a try, of course, before I add any sort of fauna to the tank. Additionally, I have to source CO2, so it's always kind of a fun process when you move to a city, figuring out where all the best shops are, where you're gonna refill your CO2, etc. So here's the question I ask of you guys. How would you stock this tank? So I wanna do some combination of shrimp, probably gonna have to be Neocaridinus since we've got very hard water here, but they'll love that. And then fish. Let me know what species you guys would recommend. Definitely gonna be going with a school of very tiny fish since this is only a 10-gallon UNS 45U, but let me know what school you would recommend. And stay tuned for lots more scapes. I gotta fill this place up with beautiful terrariums and aquariums, and maybe even my very first paludarium. Hint, hint. So if you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for lots more cool stuff.